Just want to welcome everybody here to Harbor Links for our second educational event of this winter. Always great to get a great group of golf professionals here in one room and kick a lot of ideas around and share a lot of knowledge with everybody. Just a couple housekeeping items because I know I can't get you on the back end of the meeting today, but because everybody's just bolts on out of here. But so I'm going to give you a couple housekeeping items early. We will have one more educational seminar before the PGA show, which is next week at St. Andrews. We'll be talking how to develop collegiate and junior golfers and their advancement. We've got a great panel of coaches, golf professionals, including our own Ambry Bishop from St. Andrews, and Frank Darby will be involved in that as well. Dave Pizzino from UConn, and Mike Michelides from LIU. So sign up for that. Special awards nominations are due on February 1st. The section has made it super easy for everybody to jump on board and do that this year. You don't have to do the old school faxing or sending everything in via paper. It's all online under the appropriate tab on the main page, and you can just fill it out right on the computer. Boom, send it right in. Probably do it from your phone. Haven't tried that one yet, but very, very easy to do that. So nominate your favorite teachers and golf professionals and that sort of thing. One thing I'm super excited about, I want you all to save the date at the end of April, Tuesday, April 25th. We are doing, from what I understand, it's the first time, it's going to be a District 2 Teaching and Coaching Summit. So that's going to include us, the New Jersey section, and the Philadelphia section. We're all going to get together in one spot, have a day-long teaching and coaching summit. We've got some great presenters lined up. We haven't finalized everything yet, but April 25th, it's going to be at Fiddler's Elbow in New Jersey, very centralized location for that, for everybody. So that's the New Jersey section's home, and it should be a lot of fun and come at a real nominal cost as well. So pay attention for those emails coming out real soon. Our presenters today, we've got some really great people here. Most who don't really need any introduction whatsoever. Our Met PGA golf professionals to my right, James Hong, who's the Director of Instruction right here at Harbor Links. James he's done just about everything in golf. He's gotten players to the LPGA Tour. He's been a part, Bob Carney wrote a great article in Golf Digest recently, heavily featuring James and his thoughts and ideas about junior golf. Really, really great stuff in there. The last 3 years he was the GRAA top 50 instructor, as well as the U.S. Kids lifetime master teacher. To my left over here, who will chime in as much as he can. He's got a great knowledge base. Kirk O'Gurry, our 2016 Met PGA Teacher of the Year, and holder of 32,000 tweets on Twitter as of right now. So it'll be up to maybe 33,000 by the end of the day.
Is that confirmed?
That is confirmed. 31.8 actually is the official number. And he's up to about 10, so that's 42,000 tweets combined. That's a lot of. But so if you haven't followed them already, seriously, you have to do that, because they throw out. They're great, entertaining guys, but they throw out a lot of knowledge out on social media all the time. So a lot of great stuff by them. And then joining us today, and this is a great technology. The first 2 weeks here of our educational forums really feature technology. We really got to be on the cutting edge of golf instruction. We want to welcome Mr. Sang Kim here he's the founder of 4D Motion, and he's the developer of all this great technology that we're going to learn a lot about. So without further ado, guys, take it away.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, I'll start out. Thanks to Harbor Links. Thanks to everybody for coming in. Winter, it's a beautiful day outside, but unfortunately the golf course is still closed, right? So, not playing golf, just to let you know afterwards. So go to lunch. What we wanted to do today is go over what 3D is and its practical uses. Many of you are familiar with 3D. Many of you have been on different systems. Some of you may have never gone over it. So what we wanted to do is show you the practical applications of what 4D motion can do. The great thing about this unit is that it's not just in a lab setting, and we're going to go over it, and most probably afterwards, we're going to go back into James's hitting area, and we're going to go there and we're going to do some live interactive stuff on things that it can measure, how it calibrates, and the use that you can actually take this thing and you can actually play golf with it. You could use as many or as few sensors as you want. And the great thing again is, you know, as golf professionals, our job is to try to help our golfers improve, but the real application is how do they play when they are out in the golf course? So do we see the difference between how they perform when they're in front of you in a lab, a driving range, indoor facility, compared to when they actually have OB left, fence right, tight fairway? How does their body respond? How do they react? And the ability to be able to measure that now is fascinating to me. So when Sang actually came up to us maybe a couple of years ago with this idea that, well, I got this technology of a mobile 3D inertia sensors that we're going to be able to actually capture whatever we want, and its uses that we can measure as much as we want, as few as we want. And then it's going to be up to us golf instructors to be able to use it in any way that we need to. So hopefully that's the premise of our presentation. First question I like to ask is, well, just show of raise of hands. How many people have been on a 3D? Personally. Probably Gears is out there. K-Vest will be another. Are there any other 3D, maybe pressure plates or maybe body track?
Swing is on the
Okay. So there, yeah, AMM, 3D measurements. Now with a lot of other units, what you're going to see is you usually have to be wired up, or you have to wear something that's a little bit cumbersome, where this unit here is going to be very user-friendly. So hopefully afterwards we're going to be able to show you that and go over it. So without any delay, I'd first like to introduce Sang Kim. We're going to go over 4D motion, its uses, what it can measure, and just some general 3D education. So, take it over.
Thank you. So my name is Sang Kim. I'm the founder of 4D Motion. So just to make sure I have the relevant context here, how many people care about 3D? Does anybody not care? Okay.
5D.
All right. So let's see. And I'd also like to make this as interactive as possible, small group, formal setting, so feel free to just jump in, questions, anything. So just a little background on myself. Golf, I'm fairly new to golf. I mean, as a business, I got involved in a few years ago. My first 20 years of my career was in technology, internet, startups, you know, like these guys. But no, I'm actually more like this guy. But I did it for about 20 years. My last company was a social media technology company, and I was fortunate enough that we ended up getting acquired. And then I finally was able to follow my true passion, which is golf, and try and get really, really good at it. But I remember the first time I really kind of got time to start playing some golf. My putting was killing me. I think I had 7 3-putts in one round. And this is what got me in golf. So about 5 or 6 years ago, I developed this product called Putter Wheel. Anybody familiar with Putter Wheel? Yeah. So yeah, it was just, and this was new for me because prior to this it was all software, so I had to learn about manufacturing, and it's a completely different business. But you know, we did pretty well. You know, we won a lot of awards. We're a bestseller, Amazon. We're in about 700 stores right now. Actually, 550 because Golfsmith went out of business, so a little less. But then as I really started, you know, I'm a problem solver. As I started getting into golf, you know, one of the first things I noticed was what I thought I was doing and what I was actually doing. Just the whole concept of feel versus real was way off. I mean, almost staggeringly so. I remember being in my basement, and you know, I'm like, all right, maybe I need to shorten my swing, right? Typical golf, I'm trying everything out. So I get my son to come down, and I say, okay, where's my club? And I felt like, honestly, I felt like I was going back 30, 40%, not even half swing. He's like, yeah, your club's at about here. That's a full swing. I'm like, that's crazy. Let's this. So I thought about that a lot, and how do we solve that problem? How do we get over the limits of the camera? I mean, the camera's great, show you what, it's hard to see yourself, but there's some limitations. Camera angles can throw this thing off. Not really gonna have more than one camera angle. And then I thought about the possibilities of data. The videos it's analog. You can eyeball it, but you can't really analyze it. When you start getting data, you can start doing some objective comparison. You could start to learn things that you just cannot see with the naked eye. So if we can help field versus real, overcome the limits of the camera, actually start getting some data, and then you could start to train and ingrain the correct feelings and motions. So before I jump into 4D, I just want to provide as much information as possible. So in general, there are 3 types of motion capture systems, right? So the first is optical, right? A good example of that is gears, or that's what Sasha or Dr. Connor or Philip Cheatham will have in their research labs. It's typically a room, 4 to 12 cameras mounted. Then you put all the stuff like you see the athletes do in EA Sports, these reflective white markers, and you take a swing, all right? So those are optical. The second is electromagnetic. Probably the best example of that is AMM. These are typically wired systems. And then the third is inertial. So KVest 3D is an example of inertial. 4D motion is inertial. So let me kind of give a little bit more meat to that. So with the optical systems, I actually had the opportunity. Does everybody heard of Dr. Kwan? So he's a professor, and he's got a $250,000 laboratory. 12 cameras, thousands of dollars each, and I had the opportunity to go, and he, a lot of the tour pros go to him and get measured full 3D. So I got an opportunity to go there. So what are the capture methods? Optical, so it goes with the reflectors. It's pretty complex stuff, right? It took about 20 minutes. I had to get naked, except for a pair of spandex biker shorts, put all the reflectors markers on me. We took a few swings. There's software. When the cameras will find some gaps, right? Because there's reflectors, and as you're moving, sometimes the marker might be hidden. So they have to kind of fill in those gaps, and about an hour later you get a report. So it's fairly complex. It's not really a practical training tool. Not portable. You have to be in that room, and like I said, it was $250,000. Now gears, they automate some of that stuff, but it's still, you have to be in a room. There's some setup time, etc. But they're highly accurate systems depending on the software and the capture rate. Some of these cameras can go upwards of 1,000 frames per second. Electromagnetic, AMM. I also had the opportunity to work with that with John Sinclair. It's an incredibly accurate system. It's 6D, well, in their terminology, it's 6D, which means in addition to all the rotational and angular movements, you can actually capture linear movement in space. So lift, sway, thrust. How are my hips and center of mass moving in space? So the capture method of electromagnetic is they're capturing points in space. I should have mentioned that about optical. So the cameras are actually capturing points in space and creating the model of you. It's a bit complex. I had to stand still for about 20 minutes while John set everything up. John's very meticulous. Other people can maybe do it in 12, but my back was killing me so much from standing still for 20 minutes, I could barely take a swing. There's lots of wires hanging off you.
And how heavy is it? How heavy is the 3D?
I mean, the sensors aren't that heavy. They're small, but they're thick wires, so you kind of have to stand there, get all digitized, take a swing, and the wires hit you in the face. And then now I'm thinking like, all right, if I swing, the wire's gonna hit me in the face, and But it's one of the most accurate systems out there. Like John captures like all the tour pros go to him. Jason Day, Jordan Spieth, all those guys. It's about 25 grand. And then you have inertial. like KVS 3D. KVS has a 6D version, which is actually electromagnetic. From an inertial standpoint, I want people to understand about inertial, because here's the thing: like, I will never stand up and say 4D motion does everything and it's the best of everything. These are technologies, and they all have their strengths and weaknesses, right? So what inertial sensors do is you put the sensors on, and it's actually a lot like your cell phone. You know, when you're playing games, you rotate. There's a gyroscope in there, there's an accelerometer in there, and there's a compass in there. And that's kind of the basis of the technology. And when we put these sensors on your body in the club, we create a reference position by doing something we call user calibration. So we have a model in the software that assumes a position that's like this, and we have a version that's like this. And then we put the sensors on you, and we capture you in that state. And then we measure the movements of those sensors relative to that. Okay, so what does that mean? Does it mean if I take that sensor and I just, without any model, move it around in space, is it going to accurately capture that? No. What it will do is it'll measure the movement of your body relative to that position, and then we can actually get very accurate, all of those measures. We can get the lift, sway, thrust, we can get the wrist, we can get the club, we capture it all, okay? The one thing I would say is, regarding the club, and if you stick around for the demo later, we put it at the butt of the grip. So what I can give you the rotation, I can give you kind of the forward bend, side bend angle, move it in 3D. If you take a full swing, can I measure the shaft deflection of that? No. Okay, just to be clear about that. So when I looked at all of those systems, my goal was to create something that really hit kind of these are the 4 pillars of 4D motion. I wasn't trying to create a research tool. I wanted something that every golf professional can use. So I wanted something simple. I wanted something portable, like really portable. No wires, no antenna, no routers. I wanted something that could literally work with your cell phone and the sensor. So these are the sensors. No, just kidding. These are the sensors. I'll pass it around so you guys can just feel. So that's two back. They're super light. They'll get to you, and they're flat. So they're so light and they're flat. Like, this is the bag that it comes with. 90% of the space are the straps. Right? These are the straps. Right? And put a little kind of rubbery thing on the bottom for grip. But they're so small and light that you can literally tape them on. So literally double-sided Scotch tape, and you just tape them on. And actually, after I would say about 3 minutes, you'll forget you have them on. As a matter of fact, a lot of times a student walks away, and so you got to keep track of your sensors in the system. And I'll show you some pictures. I have one instructor. He teaches mostly tour and mini tour players in France, and he doesn't use the straps. He basically gets them down to their underwear and just tapes them on, because he wants no, they call it kind of artifact movement. He wants no potential, even the minutest false data with the clothes. I think that's a little bit extreme, but
it's highly unrecommended outside on the golf course.
Yes, that would be some harassment issues. Gotta be careful of that. And then, so portable was key. Now, and as Kirk alluded to, I think one of the other key design points were flexibility. Like, having gone through that, all right, you're giving an hour lesson, half an hour lesson. You don't want it to take 10 minutes, even 10 minutes to set up. It's got to be fast. So with 4D, you can use one sensor to do like biofeedback or capture a certain body part or the club. And even with one sensor, as I'll demonstrate, the information is incredibly rich. So for example, if I put one sensor on my chest, as I get into the setup position, I could tell you the amount of forward bend that you have. I could tell you the tilt of your shoulders. I could tell you how open or closed you are relative to your target line. And as you move, all of those numbers are moving. So at the top of your swing, I could tell you how much forward bend you have, how much rotation, how much side tilt. So, or with the club at every angle. So it's incredibly rich with just one sensor. With two, you start to get angles. So a good example of two sensors is if I put one on my hand and one on my forearm, I can get radial ulnar flexion extension, right? So if you want, if you want that person to have a little bit more, flexion at the impact, you could just put two sensors on, and I'll show you all of those readings throughout the swing, all the way up through 12. If you want to put it, quite honestly, we can go up to 18, which will capture pretty much every joint in your body. But I think that's important because, one of the recommended ways one of the recommendations of how to best use the app are, let's say you have a brand new student, okay, put on 6 or 12 sensors and use that as a baseline. You can look through the analysis and you can say, okay, here's what I want to work on first. And from that point on, you don't need to put everything on. If you're working on just the torso movement, 1 or 2 sensors will do. You can do that in a minute and get started. Okay, so the flexibility is a really important thing. And then lastly, affordability. I mean, everything I saw in the market was $5,000 and above. And a lot of them were 10, 15, going up to 40. That didn't make any sense to me. Just coming from my tech background, we like to disrupt technologies, and basically what that means is we find some good stuff, but it's ridiculously expensive or ridiculously complex. Let's make it simple and affordable. So 46 sensor system starts at $1,450. So like a quarter of the cheapest system out there. And we think that, honestly, I have customer testimonials, they make their money back in the first month with that. So it's in that price range, it's mostly like single sensor systems. So we can give you a 6 sensor system for $1,450, 12 sensor systems, $2,450. So this is something we think everyone can afford. Okay, so like I said, it's complete. I jumped ahead. All right, so you decide how many. There we go. Okay, so the other thing about this is, and as you see the application, it's incredibly rich. Like we have, 50 different types of things. Graphs, paths, comparison analysis, all of that. But the students also get a free viewer app. So I remember I went to a golf tech once and had a great session with the guy, and they had some sensors, like they had a 2 sensor system, they had some good biofeedback. And then when the lesson was done, I think he wrote a couple of things on a piece of paper and left, and was like, okay, I'm gonna forget everything that I've learned. With 4D, when you capture your student, they get the free viewer app right on their phone, and they walk away with their swings. So that's really, I can tell you from the student perspective, that's really cool. And from a business value proposition, for example, let's say you charge a different rate for a 4D motion session. The fact that your student will walk away with the 3D of themselves, that's really big. And it also gets really viral because then, they've probably never done anything like that before. It's right in their pocket. So when they see their friends, they'll be like, oh, check this out. This is me in 3D. So I think it's pretty compelling. And it's all connected via the cloud. So when you capture a student, you create a profile for him. You capture the session, and then let's say, as Kirk alluded to, you can even rent out sensors in your set. So if you have a 12 sensor system, and your student's like, wow, I'm just hitting my driver great, but I get on the 7th hole, and I see the water left, OB right, and something happens, and I just can't find the fairway. What am I doing? All right, well, take 2 sensors or whatever, and go out there and take a swing, and let's see what happened. You don't even have to be there. And because we're connected via the cloud, as long as that student's cell phone is connected, which it will be, as soon as he takes that swing, it shows up right on your system. So it's kind of back and forth. So this really opens up a whole set of possibilities where with 4D motion, you could be teaching your students, you're not limited to just when they can come to your site. So I was talking to one of my customers yesterday, and what he's most excited about is, he said, you know, one of the things that's really excited about this whole kind of rental model is, you know, I have lots of students that see me 3-4 times a year, right? It's just whatever, time, cost, whatever. But with 4D, you can really, you could have a 16, 20 virtual sessions with him, right? So if you think, and you could, so now time, he could practice at home, but he's not just practice at home and, ingraining bad things. You give him specific drills, the system will tell him if he's doing it right or wrong. So now, they're probably practicing more, they're practicing under your eye, virtually, and they don't have to travel, and it's probably a cheaper rate, but I think everybody wins. The student will get better, you get to do more business, et cetera.
Right, so it's saying also, what he was talking about right or wrong, that is specifically the instructor's preferences. Now, 3D is not really telling people how to teach. Now, there are certain patterns and certain movements that I think good players generally do. So you can call it a model or not, but there are certain acceleration rates, certain ways that the joints move that are preferred. But it still doesn't tell you how to do it. So when you prescribe something for your students, it's really going to be, okay, are they doing what I'd like for them to do? And they're getting the biofeedback. So now you can have a relationship. So I could have a relationship with someone from Japan, and I could have a student there that, let's say, every week or every 2 weeks, they're sending me measured data. So now I don't have to look at their swings that they're sending me with the shadows there, I can't see anything, and it's a blur. Now they could actually give me, oh wow, we're working on pelvis rotation, we're working on whatever it is, lead arm, we're working on whatever it is, ulnar deviation. Then we can go, oh, you know what, yeah, that is getting better, or it's moving in the right direction. So this is what we look at as the future of what's happening. And I remember how excited we all were when video first came out. I remember the first time you had the big, what is that, what was that thing? The big yellow kiosk, right, the JVC, and you're looking at that, you're outside, you're trying to look at the video, but it was really cool because we never had that. So to be able to see ourselves on videos, like, oh, wow, that's what I look like. But now with the 3D, it goes beyond that optical of just, oh, what do I look like? It really gives you, okay, what is the body really doing? And to go off also on, like, let's say a lot of people, now how many people have a launch monitor in the room? Majority, right? So we use the launch monitors for certain purposes. Now what's great about launch monitors, it gives a good idea of what the club is doing and what the ball is doing. But what 3D gives us is, it gives us why the club is moving that way. So instead of just going, oh yeah, swing up and out, or go like this, or you're swinging too far down. Now we could actually look at what the body's doing, and we can figure out the whys of why the club is not being delivered to the ball the way that we'd like to see it. So it just gives us a little bit of a deeper understanding of improvement of the golfers. Yeah.
So if I were to measure pelvic rotation,
Yep.
all right, so the measurement at, say, the top of my backswing, that's taking that from my address position?
No, it's relative to 0. So when you stand straight like this
Right.
is 0.
Okay.
Right? I have no rotation, I have no forward F side.
Right.
So when you get into your address position, I will tell you, you've got 20 degrees of forward bend, maybe you got 8 degrees of this, maybe they're a little open or closed relative. So
But you could put that on my pelvis and tell me how much pelvic rotation I had in the backswing.
rotation, bend, side bend, one sensor.
Thank you.
Yep.
Put it on yourself.
I'll put it on your
You
ear.
can put it on
I'll
yourself.
put your ear.
I won't be putting it on you.
When you eat
Sushi
sushi.
right now.
I want to see what your ear's doing while you're eating sushi.
Come on.
Okay, so, and I'll jump into the, you guys probably want to see this, probably hear me talk, but let me just explain. All right, I'll leave this up there. So there's 3 modes in which 4D motion can work, right? Again, I'm trying to give you guys options to do what you want to do, not what the software dictates. So the first mode is capture and analysis. So this is, we put the sensors on, the student takes a swing, we capture it, gets downloaded to the app, and then you can analyze kinematic sequence, lift, swing thrust, wrist angles, whatever. The second mode is live biofeedback. Okay, so I think the first mode is really good to help understand either for you what you want to see, or sometimes, as you'll see in the case studies, showing a student in 3D what they're doing with the tools and visually, and maybe in reference to a pro swing, it often makes the world of difference. So that's what the capture analysis mode is. The second mode is biofeedback. Is everybody not familiar with biofeedback? So biofeedback, what you're trying to do is you're trying to help a student understand what it feels like to be in a certain position. So for example, if I put a sensor on my chest, and let's say, my goal is 90 degrees of rotation, 25 degrees of side tilt, and 0 degrees of forward bend, right? And what we find is the rotation's pretty easy for most mid to high handicappers. They have way too much forward bend, which is very unintuitive, but like a tour average forward bend at the top of the swing is 0, right? You're like, well, how can this be 0? Well, if you think about it this way, and then add 25 degrees of side bend, that's 0. So if more forward bend at the top of the swing is when they're like this, more like this, right? So the tour pro is pretty much like this, on average, give or take 6 or 7 degrees standard deviation. You could actually just, in biofeedback mode, you could say, I want the student at 90 degrees rotation, and you could set a range, say plus or minus 5, 25 degrees of side bend, right? Because he's got a tendency to come up. So you want him staying, you want some tilt in there, and whatever. Let's say, he's older like me, and he just can't get into 0 degrees of forward bend. So you want him maybe 5 to 10. And as they get into that position, we can provide audible feedback when they're in there. So they can kind of search for that position, like, oh, okay, that's what it feels like. And then just keep doing that, 20 times. I'll tell you, if you do that 20 times, you're gonna notice 2 things. They will get a feel for it. They're gonna be sweating. It's actually really hard work, but they will get a feel for that. And that could work like with my son. I'm a 7th grader who plays basketball. I'm trying to get him into golf, and his big problem, he went to golf kids. His big problem, he just swung like this all the time. He just never shifted his weight. Biofeedback, I just took one sensor, I put it on his lower leg, right? If you think about the side tilt, if I stand straight at 0, as I get into address, my lead leg is kind of at this angle, and then I set a target of 0. And what I told him, and I had the system make a sound. So what I told him to do was, before he swings here, shift your weight, he would hear the ding, and then he would do his swing. So if you think about that, any part of the body could be the club, and we'll go through these examples. That's biofeedback. So it's kind of slow movement. You set a target and let the person start to develop a feel for it. One other thing to note is, saying, I don't know what any of these numbers, I don't know the tour ranges, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. What you could do is like, Kirk was, just out of position. and we just wanted Kirk to be somewhere else. You can actually just move him, and whatever, and then you just hit set target. So you can actually just physically move the person where you want it to be. The sensors are recording everything. You just hit a button that says set target, and then that becomes a target for that student. And then you don't have to plug in any numbers or anything.
Now, speaking of the future is, now you get your customers, your students, who have their own units. Now you could add your set, they can calibrate themselves. How often do you hear, hey, how do I practice? What do I do? What do they usually do? They go to the range and just hack away, right? They think they're trying to do what you're trying to get them to do. But what you can actually do now is, let's say you've got that person who's got that pretty obscene forward bend and they just can't get out of that flexion. Well, they could actually go and practice that at home. They could actually do it at the range. They could actually send you that data so you could actually see if they really are doing anything.
Yeah. Or because so our sensors are modular. As far as I know, no other company has modular sensors. So what I mean by that is, every other system, let's say it's a 3 or 5 sensor system, one sensor always goes here, one sensor always goes here, so you can't split them up at all. With our system, let's say you're running a clinic and you have 12 students and you want them all to do chest biofeedback. You can literally split, because we allocate the sensors dynamically. So everybody can get a chest sensor and everybody can do biofeedback. And you can just walk around, set them and just monitor them. because the system's giving them feedback, so that you know they're not practicing.
In the same realm, if you have somebody who comes over the top of their downswing or something, could you could set that and have an audible response to when they are going over the top to when they're.
You can set it to
that's
shoulders, you can set it to trail arm,
anything you want.
whatever you prefer them to see.
Yeah.
Sure you can.
Yeah, actually, you gave, and I'll demonstrate this later, but I'll show you how it works, because that's actually one of my favorite things.
I mean, that's
So this is the club mount, so this goes right here. And we have a real-time biofeedback mode for the club, right? And you could measure, you could do it for putting too, but for his example, if on the biofeedback, I calibrate this like this, so the face angle of the target. I do this because I want to make sure that this represents 0, right? So it's plumb bobbing, there's no side tilt, there's no forward tilt. And then as you hold it, all the numbers will start to move dynamically. If you set forward bend to 0 for a club, I'll make it more user-friendly. What it's basically doing is it's creating a invisible coronal plane. So what's a coronal plane? If I'm standing at my target, this wall behind me is a coronal plane. It's a plane that basically cuts the front half of my body from the back half of the body. So imagine a glass window. Now, when this club gets to this position, it's gonna give you that ding, because now I'm crossing that coronal plane, right? So if you think about the swing, there's 2 good times that it should cross, and when they cross is important. So, common mistake, right? This is me, like, boom. Right? That's how I start my swing. Hand goes away, the club goes behind. So if I do that, they'll hear ding, ding. It'll be like, no, I want you to hear ding when you're here. I'm not saying this. What my instructor told me to do, I'm not saying it's the right way. I don't want to get into a discussion. But depending on what you want, so they'll be like, oh, no, okay, let me turn together. Okay, now I get the audible feedback. That's when the club essentially was in line with the target. Now over here, if they cross the top, it's going to ding over here. And to your point, if they're coming over the top, they're going to hear that ding, boom, right here, because they're just right. And you can just simply tell them, hey, let's try to hear that later in the swing, because if they kind of shallow out that club and come this way, they'll hear it here. But if they hear it here, boom, right? So you could just say, hey, real simple. I mean, without even getting too mechanical, I want to hear that thing, that ding, as late as possible. Let them figure it out. It's just one example. Yeah.
Getting back to the group aspect,
yes.
Group coaching, if you had 12 different students with a sensor on each, would all that information go to your device or their device?
Both.
In real
They're
time?
connected.
Okay.
Yeah. So when you set a profile for your students, and they're using their cell phone to do it, it's connected and it will show up on your system. Just full disclosure, that's a feature that's coming out in about a week. The thing that we had to develop for that was to make the sensors go on different channels, different frequencies, so that they're not, you're not getting his sensor readings. So that's been tested. So we're probably going to release that next week. So you just put the sensors on different channels, and then they could operate in proximity. Okay. So that's biofeedback mode, and then the last mode, which is first version of it should be ready next week. I was actually hoping to have a demoable version of it for you this morning. I kind of have a version that kind of works. I could show it to you. So if you think about that, we have capture mode and we have biofeedback mode. And then the thing that really occurred to me is we should have kind of a full swing instant feedback mode. So with this mode, what it is unlike biofeedback, let's say you did biofeedback, right? And you were working on a certain thing, but then you want to see, does it translate when I take a full speed swing and when I'm trying to hit the ball? So we call this scorecard mode. So you can put one or a few sensors on and you just take a full speed swing and just instantly see the score. Like let's say it's kinematic sequence, or let's say it was the amount of bend or a certain thing position at the top. And then you could just kind of see it, maybe set the tablet right there, boom, okay. Do a little bit more of this, boom, a little bit more of this. So it's a different training application that actually can be really useful. So 3 modes. So let's see the application. Start from here. So this is the main screen. It's a little fuzzy. Okay, so this would be main screen, and these would be your students, right? So the first one on the list is you create a profile for yourself, and then if you have a lot of students, they'll just show up on your list. And when you click on a student, these would be all the swings that you can go into. Stop me at any time if I'm going too fast. The middle tab is what we call a swing bank. So what we're doing is providing reference swings for you. Let's see, this guy. This is Julian. No, that's not him. That's Jason's dad. So this is swing of whoops. This is a swing of Frank Dow. He's a tour player, European Mini Tour. We've got Julianne Kesney, JQ, who is a two-time winner on the European Tour. Kenny Sabrega. So these are all +3 and above handicaps. So it's really good. And what we want to do is just get more and more of these. And the goal being to match it up with your, just as a reference point, if you guys want some reference, like, so let's say you have a student who's, I don't know, 6 feet, and hits the ball left to right, weighs a certain amount. So hey, let's find a tour player who's as close to you as possible, and see if there's some things we could learn from him and compare against. So that's the swing bank. So let me show you. So let's start simple. Let's start with this is a 5-sensor configuration. So what do we have here? Hips, chest, upper arm, lower arm, club. You can control the speed here, toggle. So let's look at it at about half speed. So he's a very good player. Now it's 3D, so you could look at it from any camera angle you want. You could zoom in, you could zoom out. And then there's some 3 presets so you don't get lost. Top view, kind of look at the swing. Front view, side view down the line. So let's take a look at some of the graphs. So kinematic sequence. Really nice kinematic sequence. Go through all the details, but some of the highlights are you want to see his transition, what order is he going in, the peaks, right? So a little odd that his chest accelerates and decelerates after his hip, but not that big a deal. What's really nice is how that yellow line, which is actually, I'll take a step back. Red is pelvis, green is thorax, blue is lead arm, yellow is the club, okay? Most amateurs won't have that yellow line riding that blue line. Most amateurs are going to throw that club and you can see a big gap there. I referenced the chest graph. So this is the chest. Red line is rotation. Green line is forward bend. Blue line is side bend. So you could also just turn any of these on and off.
Can you do that in the 3D picture too? Like say if you have 5 of the sensors, you want to take away 3 of them. Can you do that?
Hide a body part?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can actually.
And any like lines you draw like through like the sensor?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. There you go.
Oh, perfect.
So you can see at the top, you can see his hips are a little open. So you can see it both visually and by the graph.
Yeah.
And then you can see, okay, so right at the top, that's front. So he's got 1 degree of forward bend, right? And he's got about 43 degrees of left tilt, left shoulder down, and he's about 100 degrees of rotation. You can kind of see, also you can see his hips kind of move first. You can see visually, but we also have a torso rotation graph, which shows you the rotation. So you can see, what's kind of interesting is, this guy doesn't do it too much, but what you'll see in a lot of other tour players is, I don't know if you can see with this projector, but right here is at the top of the swing, there's a black line. And a lot of the red is the hip, the green is the chest, and the blue is the delta. Oops. You will actually see this line dip a little bit, right? Which means there's actually, in the transition, he's creating more separation, right? His shoulders are still turning, and his hips actually start moving. As a matter of fact,
Is there a graph explanation on there for those who are not up on their graph knowledge?
yeah, so what we have, is kind of a free level 1 certification. John Sinclair does most of the graph videos. I don't know if everybody knows who John Sinclair is, but he's probably as an instructor, he probably has more 3D experience than anyone I could think of. All the top tour players come to him. He's got tons of data. So there's video series by him explaining all of these, what all of them mean.
Kind of like 3D, like 101 class.
Yeah.
Just to understand what those graphs mean, up and down, sequence, all those things. Yeah.
And then in level 2, we'll get into more of, implications from an instruction perspective. Okay, so kind of the typical things that we've seen, but yeah, we do that. We also have some tour averages. I think that's going to be part of, like, if you do level 2, you get access to the tour averages. I think I have a prototype of it here. Hold on a second. Let me take a risk and show you the development version of the app. I'll find it later. So you can see this tour player from the top of his swing. He was at about 46 degrees of difference at the top. So 45. So he goes a little bit more. What else? Let me show you just a couple more. Hip movement graph. So you can see, like a lot of the tour players, the blue line is the lift. He's kind of going down to get some ground reaction forces going, lifting up. So it's lift, sway, thrust there, and then let's see the wrist graph. This one, let me point a couple things out to you. So the blue line is pronation, supination. A lot of people call it wrist. It's actually forearm rotation. So supination is this way, pronation is this way. The red line is radial ulnar, so kind of like wrist cocking a little bit, but just straight up and down. And then the green line is flexion, extension. So, you would expect the green line as we get closer to impact, the wrist is going from, extended pretty cupped to very close to flat at impact. This is what you see in the better players, and you see rarely of in amateurs, which is, when they get when they get to the top, the tour players actually increase their pronation, right? You kind of shallow out the club, gets more powerful. The amateur, when they get to the top, they're going right into supination. Forearms rotating this way, classic over the top, you lose all your power, lots of bad things happen. So, I remember I had one of my instructors over the other day, and we were just working on that. Just put a couple of sensors on, and just working on the motions. That was a combination of, the transition. They were working on two things: increasing pronation and increasing flexion, right? And those two things will help you actually generate a little bit more power and also square the club face. So you could actually see the pronation. He's rotating, and then bang, going through there.
Sang,
Yes.
the information comes from the sensor to the platform to the app,
Yep.
right? Is that being transmitted Bluetooth?
Yes.
Thank you.
So, yeah, so those, there's a bunch of graphs. I don't think we have time to go through every one. But if you're not a graph guy, there's all of these tools. So, a lot of people like the club path, hand path, from the side. Right? Yeah. Now, okay, not to embarrass myself, but there's me. This is 1 year ago. I'm better now. Completely the opposite, right? So if we go when this one, go back and go back. Let's do this. All right, so this is a pretty cool feature. You can overlay two swings on top of each other. The gray one and the red shaft is a +6.5, I don't know, pro player. And I was probably about a 12, but you can see like, boom, right there. Like that. I'll tell you, I did have an instructor tell me to do something, and it's one thing when your instructor tells you something, but sometimes you just don't believe it, right? You don't feel it, or you're not quite sure. I can tell you, when I saw this, I was like, wow, that's really, I got to do something about that.
Can you put the 2 models side by side or just over?
I could put it side by side. We're actually working on that. Yeah, technically it's simple to do. This is what we have now. But yeah, just put it in portrait mode and lay them side by side.
But you will have side by side?
Yeah. Yeah. So other people have asked me.
You guys are going to have model swings on there, or is this just your data that?
No. So right now, those swings that I showed you, they're available to everybody. As a matter of fact, this app is free to download and look at. You just, you're not going to get any sense you can't record, but just go to Google Play. But you can really see kind of the differences. It's like, and everybody's different. I've seen tour players that come a little bit more inside, but in general, the tour players kind of bring it up a little steeper. The hands are inside the club, and then it's the opposite on the downswing. So you can see I'm much more shallow going back, and the downswing, right? It's the opposite.
Now, right now, saying, if let's say you didn't want to use it for golf,
Yep.
say, however it's set up now,
Yep.
could you use it just to measure body segments, movement?
Yeah.
Let's say,
You actually can. Like we're doing a couple of things. Number one, we're creating different versions for this for different applications. We already have a baseball application, and we're working with the top Major League Baseball instructors in baseball to help us do that.
kind of like physical therapy.
Like physical
say
therapy.
You want to walking the gait, right?
Yeah.
Improving how you walk or how
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, probably for the gait, I would probably do something more specialized to help people analyze. But for example, I was with some orthopedic surgeons in the city the other day. They wanted to see how this thing worked, and I just put one on my chest and one on my head, and they just wanted to see the upper spine movement. And I was just moving like this and just showing them all the numbers, and they kind of flipped out because the way they do it today is with a protractor. I mean, could you imagine how accurate you are if you're holding a protractor? It's ridiculous. Probably like good 10 degrees off. But yeah, to measure the range of motion, left side versus right side, hip flexibility, you can do all of that. And we have graphs for those, so we can do that. So, huh? Just a couple minutes. Okay, great. The music's going. So anyway, there's a lot of different tools, paths, lines. So just want to go over real quick. So some case studies. So this is Wayne O'Callaghan. He's a customer. He's had it for a couple months. He's a PGA professional in Northern Ireland. So he had a student here who started off like this, and I mean, you can see just visually there's a lot of bad things going on, but you can see his kinematic sequence is pretty much backwards, right? Yeah. Clubs peaking first, then the lead arm, then the chest, then the hip. You're not going to generate any power that way. And he said, just after kind of working on a couple things with the student and showing them this, it's pretty much much better kinematic sequence going. Well, in one lesson. The other one here, I'll paraphrase it for you. Basically, he said the student was trying to create width by pushing his hands away, but limited his rotation. But through 4D, he was able to show the student how a little more shoulder rotation, rotating his chest, and through shoulder rotating, show him how rotating his chest and hand path, his backswing is actually wider and creating more club head speed as a result. And it's a little bit hard to see, but you can see in the dark more chest rotation, and you can see it actually even put his club in a better position at the top. EJ Kim, he's a instructor down in Houston. It's the before and after. He said this took about 15 minutes, and it was using the biofeedback. So he basically just put her into the position that he wanted to, set that as a target, and just had her work on that. And you can see not only is her kind of upper body in a better position, but look at the legs, right? You know, sometimes just things will happen and kind of a domino effect. So, you know, with that, it takes literally about, you know, less than a minute to set up and get going. So yeah, I thought I'd throw that up there. That's the, you know, he's very particular. So these guys are European tour players, and that's how he practices with them. Again, not recommended.
Don't wear a G-string when you come.
I have another video, but it's actually like 6 minutes long. But it's one that I can probably even show it to you. It's one that basically you can put the person. So from the top, what's kind of interesting is, you know, we have this opacity tool. If I'm looking from the top, I can't. And with the video, you definitely can't see what his hands are doing. But with this, we could just basically make the person transparent, and you can kind of see what they're doing, the hands from the top view. You could also put them in skeleton mode to see a lot of different things as well. So, you know, this is kind of a general overview. It's the state of the app today. But I think, you know, if you guys ever start working with 4D motion, what you'll find is that if you guys have good suggestions, like I heard, you know, the side-by-side thing, or different graphs, or different tools, you know, we listen to our customers, we develop stuff. You know, we'll prioritize it obviously by demand, and you know, we're pretty good at turning things around pretty quickly. So, you know, I think we're still really just about 4 or 5 months into our launch. There's so many things we have planned for the application. Yeah, it'll be fun to potentially work with people in this room.
Are there any extra fees, yearly fees or anything?
Optional. So you buy the system. You can buy a premium no fault support plan. So we have a standard manufacturer warranty, but if your student steps on it, we also have a premium plan, so we don't care what happened to it, we'll replace it for you. It's 300 and 500 for the 6 sensor and 12 sensor. Level 2 certification and above will have a fee. So there will be these optional things, but if you want to buy the system, you want to use it, you own it. It's not a rental.
Oh, are you asking Eric like TrackMan like 2000?
Yeah, a yearly flight scope has, they all have those yearly
Yeah, I'm not familiar
maintenance,
with
or
what they
whatever
do.
you want to call it. fees.
Right. Buy the unit but pay us so we stay in business.
Yes, that fee.
Subscription fee.
Yep.
Send my kids.
You're gonna move the show? PGA?
Sorry?
Will you have a booth PGA?
Yes, we will. Yeah, yeah. I'm not sure what number, but we're pretty close to TrackMan and TPI, that whole area.
Okay.
All right. I think we're going to take a short break right now. When we come back, James is going to show you his uses of it. He's going to show you some examples of a student that he works with during the students and actually what happens on the golf course and compare the data.
Get out there, yeah.
When will you have an iOS version for it?
Yeah, so the iOS should be ready before the end of the month. Yeah, so it's being tested right now. So by the time you get trained and figure out how to do this thing, the iOS app will be there. So, as a matter of fact, there's a viewer version of the app where you can see the swing bank swings on iTunes Store right now, so if you want to check it out.
Say you buy one now, and then a year from now it's better. Do you get the upgrades because you bought earlier?
Yeah, what we're doing now is we have a special plan for the people who are buying as a part of this first batch. So you can exchange for the new ones. I think it's for 6 sensor it's a $300 fee, and for the 12 sensor it's a $500 fee. So you don't have to. It's not like, hey, just buy a new set. We do have to cover our costs a little bit, but it's a fairly, And actually, I think for the people who are buying now, given the fact that we're probably going to increase our prices by about 20%, even if you buy now and pay the exchange fee, it'll still be cheaper than the people who buy the summer.
Do you just buy them in groups of 6?
Yeah, so there's kind of a software and hardware part, so that's why the 12 sensor is cheaper than 2 6 sensors. But honestly, my recommendation would be, I think the 6 is good for 95% of the people. It covers pretty much everything. It takes twice as long to put on 12. I think you can work on the upper body, lower body separately. And I think the only reasons to jump into a 12 are, I don't know, somebody else paying for it maybe. If you really plan on doing kind of a group thing where you're keeping 6 for yourself and 6 you're giving to your students, but you can always buy more sensors as you go. So you can start off with the 6. I mean, my recommendation would be to start with the 6, quite honestly.
Okay, great. Take a little break. Come back. We can see.